The Lord is risen. This is Father Joe Giuseppe with you once again. This is from the Gospel of John. Now, a week later, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, although the doors were locked, and stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believe." This is part of the gospel that we're going to hear this Sunday, this beautiful gospel reading. Now, Father Andrew and I are taking turns each week preaching, so he'll be preaching this weekend, and Father Randy will be having his meditation as well. But I want to talk about this gospel just a little bit. Now, one way we can pray or at least meditate is with words. Another way is by looking. We can meditate and even pray perhaps with our eyes, simply by looking at something, particularly looking at art, particularly looking at great art. And there is a work of great art I'd like to share with you now. It's called The Incredulity of St. Thomas by an Italian artist known as Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, more simply as Caravaggio. He lived from 1571 to 1610, and he was a rather revolutionary artist at the time, and there are two of his techniques that you'll see in this painting. Okay? One of them is chiaroscuro, light and darkness. And you see this light and darkness and the way the light reflects off the characters and their clothes. That's one of his techniques. Another one is realism. Caravaggio was a master of realism. Sometimes his works could be so realistic that they might even have been rejected. So you look at the apostles there. They have wrinkly foreheads, and at least one of them has clothes that are rather tattered, and Thomas, even his fingernails are kind of dirty. And the risen Christ is taking Thomas' finger and putting it into his side. Can you even see that skin buckling up just a little bit? A marvelous picture just to look at and to meditate on those words. Put your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believe. And you can see Jesus just taking Thomas' finger there and sticking it inside. Do not be unbelieving, but believe. And of course, the gospel goes on from there, and we will hear the whole thing on Sunday. But I wanted to give you just a point there to meditate on faith, to meditate on Thomas there, and think about how we all are called, in the words of St. Paul, to walk by faith and not by sight. And these days in particular, we are being called in one sense to walk by faith and not by sight. And in the meantime, let us continue to pray for one another and to pray for our suffering world.